Hi, everyone, and welcome to this Keptn Community and Developer Meeting. It's February 11th. I already see we have quite some items on the agenda, a lot of new contributions we want to take a look at. I just want to start briefly, same procedure as every time. Please add your name to the attendee list. I will share again also the link on the in the chat. You will also find the link in the Keptn community page on GitHub. So it's always the same link. We just keep this document growing. Please just add your name. I see also more folks joining. So I will post the link again so you also have it. In this meeting, we are following the CNCF Code of Conduct. That means please be nice to each other. And with that, we're getting already started on the agenda. We're not having anything to discuss as a follow-up from last meeting. We clarified, I think last meeting was the discussions around the Keptn API. If there are more discussions going on, let us know or put them in the agenda for next meeting. I just want to give a quick shout out. There is a last call for the application for the LFX mentorship program. The mentorship program applications, they close tomorrow. So if you want to take part in this mentorship as a mentee, that means you will be part of this program and can join, for example, Keptn for a period of about 3 months, and you can contact and you will get mentors assigned. We have the link here. If you're interested in this program or if you want to share it with others, you're most welcome to apply and to share it. The deadline for this is, I think, tomorrow, and then the CNCF will hand over the applicants to the Keptn mentors, and we will start the decision-making process. Are there any questions so far? If not, I will post again the link, and I'm handing over to Florian to show us his latest contributions.
All right, thanks, Jürgen. Let me just share my screen. All right, today I've again a couple of pull requests to show you. So let's get started. The first two pull requests are about the Go utils. And let's have a look at what that was all about. So the issue for that was raised by Christian, who correctly identified that in order to send a cloud event within a Keptn service, it was a little bit tedious because a lot of boilerplate code was needed to first initialize an event. Then you needed to initialize a Keptn handler, which is a part of the Go utils. So the responsibility of this Keptn handler is to basically provide some convenience functions for Keptn services to, for example, send events or also gather resources such as the shipyard from the configuration repository of your project. And yeah, so, but actually still a lot of boilerplate code was needed. And as a programmer, you would have to ensure that the correct cloud event variables such as the sh Keptn context and the triggered ID are set. And then also the configuration of the Keptn handler was not optimal because the way it worked, it sends event to the event broker, and the source or the location of the event broker was defined by passing a variable, a string variable. So, which is, for example, the address of the distributor that's running along next to the pod where your service is running, or the Keptn API endpoint for forwarding events. And this was hard to unit test, because in order to check, for example, if your service is sending out the expected events, you would need to, for example, initialize a test HTTP server and then point the event broker URL variable to that test server, and then in the request handler of that server, check if you are receiving the correct cloud events. That was a little bit tedious, and we have addressed those issues. And let's just have a look at the Keptn service template that Christian already updated, and have a look at how this looks now. So, for example, here I have an action triggered event handler, which is responsible for handling incoming action.triggered events received by Keptn. And as you can see here, we already have this new send task started event convenience function of the Keptn handler. And what that will do, it will basically hide this part here, where you needed to initialize the cloud event and set all those variables. And it will automatically make sure that all the required attributes concerning the context of the event, so for example, the triggered ID, the sh Keptn context variable, and also certain properties within the event data block, for example, the project, the stage, and the service are set correctly. So this function will ensure that, and it will then send out the cloud event. And also we have a send task finished event method, which works similarly. And you, of course, can also provide your own custom event payload as long as it implements a certain interface, which is the Keptn event properties interface, which is defined in the Go utils. There will be a detailed developer guide on how to use all these functions, but this is, I think, a much easier approach of sending events than the previous one, where you had to write all this boilerplate code. And then also I mentioned the previous approach was hard to unit test, and therefore we have deprecated the event broker URL variable that's being passed to the Keptn handler when it's being initialized. And instead of providing this URL, you can now pass an object that implements the event sender interface of the Keptn Go utils. And in the Go utils, we also provide a fake event sender that implements this interface. And now you can pass that to the initialization of your Keptn handler and use that during your unit test. So for example, here the Keptn handler is initialized, then a action triggered event data is generated, then it's being handled. And after this handle action triggered function has been finished, you can now just access this fake event sender and basically check if it received all the events that you're expecting your service to be sending. So this fake event sender we're providing just records all incoming cloud events or outgoing cloud events that your service has sent, and you can now check this easily, which is a little bit easier than starting a HTTP test server and using, for example, Go channels to check if it received all the events. Are there any questions about that? All right, if not, let's continue with the next pull request. So I will spare you the implementation details, but what the goal here is because we will introduce a new event format for Keptn 0.8, where we are going to replace the evaluation done events that we used in previous Keptn versions with the evaluation.triggered events, which have a slightly different structure. But of course, if you already have Keptn 0.7, for example, in place and are using it to run evaluations for your services, after upgrading, you might still want to use those previous evaluations to use them as a comparison base for your future evaluations with Keptn 0.8. And that's why we extended the Mongodb data store to also provide a backwards compatibility for those previous evaluation done events. So that means that after you have upgraded your Keptn installation, you can still use your previous evaluations as a comparison base for your services. Are there any questions about that? All right, if not, I think I have one more. So
Florian, just
yeah.
one remark or just one idea. Should we mention this in the upgrade guide that old evaluation events are still available and not deleted?
Yeah, we can add a note about that. Yeah.
Because today I updated or I was working on the documentation and I reviewed the upgrade part, and I think I will add a note there that all events are still available.
Perfect. All right, let's continue with my last pull request for this week. So this was a fun one. So this was about improving the MongoDB data store performance. And yeah, basically the problem we had in previous Keptn versions is that if your projects in Keptn grew until up to a certain point, or when there were many events within your project, and you had, for example, many services within a project, it might be that at some point the MongoDB data store will provide a bad performance because of a non-optimal database schema within the MongoDB, and therefore you might have experienced a response time degradation in the MongoDB data store. For example, it took the bridge a long time to fetch the event traces from the MongoDB data store. And what we have evaluated here in this pull request is how the performance behaves if we add indexes to certain collections. And that actually proved to be very helpful. So let's have a look at the performance test before those indexes have been added. So basically, the test looked at as follows. So I created one project, and then I added one service, did a couple of evaluation runs, checked how the MongoDB data store performance looked like. So had a look at the response time of that service. Then I added another service, again, executed 100 evaluations more, then added another service, again, did some evaluations and so on. And as you can see here, with a growing number of services within that project, the response time slowly degraded up until a point where yeah, it became really slow. And also, for example, when opening the bridge and a lot of requests were sent at the same time, it basically went to its knees. And then After adding those indexes, I did this test again. And as you can see here, the response time pretty much stays constant thanks to those indexes. And also the baseline was much faster than before. So as you can see here, we have a 95 percentile of 200 milliseconds. And here we started out with about, okay, here we only show the median, and that already was a lot slower than after adding those indexes. So that step really proved to be very efficient. All right, are there any questions about that?
Just one question. Can we replay this test, or can we do it again?
Yes, the plan is actually to also integrate it into our continuous integration pipeline. But what I've added here already in this pull request, I added a load testing script to the repository that can be executed manually for now.
Perfect. Because I mean, it's awesome what you have done here, improving the MongoDB. Very, very great. And but just or what I'm also interested in is how heavy the database is growing, depending on the number of events that are coming in. This is maybe the next question that we have to ask ourselves: how much or how many events can we store in the MongoDB before we run out of space? But this is a little bit out of topic, but really cool that we can reuse this test to do this then.
Absolutely. All right, I think I'm now through with all my pull requests, so I will hand over to Bernd.
Thank you. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. I've picked two issues to show today. One of them is that we've migrated some of the endpoints from one service to another service, namely the configuration service had a lot of endpoints which are partly just storing configuration in Git and fiddling around with the database and so on. We wanted the configuration service to only have CRUD operations for resources which are stored then in the configuration store, which is in this case a Git repository. And so we needed to move all the other endpoints or the functionality of the endpoints with which were dealing with the database and so on to another service. And the perfect point for this was the shipyard controller. And yeah, we took the opportunity to do a little bit of refactoring in the shipyard controller as well to increase test coverage and so on. Yeah, and in the end result is that if we take a look at the Swagger HTML side for our configuration service API, what this service is now offering is only endpoints which are dealing with resources. You see here in gray, these endpoints are not available anymore to the public outside. So what you can do is here, yeah, as I said, doing CRUD operations on resources, project resources, stage resources, service resources, and so on. So the nice thing here is then that the configuration service doesn't have any dependency anymore to the database. It's just configuring the Git repository. It is creating branches there and so on. On the other hand, if we take a look at the Swagger API for the shipyard controller, we have here now the endpoints where you can create project. This will actually hit the database then and do the stuff there. So this was the part of migrating those endpoints to the other service. Of course, there was work to be done around this. For example, adapting all the GoUtil stuff and the bridge and the CLI, which was already also done. So we are now at the stage that everything works again as expected, and the correct endpoints in this case. The endpoints of the shipyard controller will be hit instead of the configuration service directly. Yeah, that was it from this issue. Actually, it's already merged, and we are still a little bit fighting to get the integration test working again, but it looks good that tomorrow also this aspect will be up and running again.
I would have a question. Can you please go back to the spec UI and to the configuration service?
Yes, configuration service.
And then scroll down, please.
Mm.
What are service default resources?
Good idea. Flo, you know?
I think
Tell us.
what I'm sure is that this endpoint is not really used, but I think those default resources is basically an endpoint that pushes the same resource to all stages of that service.
Okay, and they are not used, so we should think about it to get rid of those if we, on the first hand, do not know what they are, and the first and second hand, they are not used.
I was just wondering, so I was not aware that we have such endpoints. And my question would have been, have you introduced those questions? But okay, that's all of this issue. So not part of the scope of this issue.
Yeah, but it would be in the scope of cleaning up the endpoints. So could we actually delete this default resources thing here? Do you know by heart, or should we investigate?
We will have to investigate
that part. Okay. Okay, but other than that, yeah, if there are no
Really
questions,
clear structure now. Thank you.
it's a much clear structure. Yeah, it's just dealing with resources, and that's it. The second issue I wanted to quickly show you is.
Sorry, now I have another question. So, can I ask it? So, are you using GoSwagger or Gonic or something like this?
I think the configuration service is still basically a great part of it is generated with Swagger.
But that's fine.
That hasn't changed, but in this case, it's I think fine because there's little logic left in the configuration service now. It's really just taking resources, posting them, or getting resources and pushing them to the client and so on. On the other side, the shipyard controller is now fully implemented using the Gene web framework.
Cool. Thank you.
Because, yeah, it's a little bit nicer to develop with the Gene framework instead of having, I don't know, function names which are, I don't know, 300 digits long and so on, which are generated by the GoSwagger tool. And it's, yeah, a nice framework to work with and also easy to do testing stuff and so on. So I think in the mid to long-term goal, we should migrate all our stuff from GoSwagger generated stuff to the Gene framework, step by step. So the second thing I wanted to show you is also a convenience thing we've implemented in the CLI actually. So you know that documentation site which describes our cloud events, how the structure of each of the event is, and example data which show how such a cloud event look like. It's known as the Keptn spec, cloud event spec. And now we identified that keeping that description of the cloud event spec up to date is very difficult, because if you forget something here, you forget something there, and so on. And in the end, you have a cloud event spec which is more or less not up to date with the reality and so on. What you can do now is, if we take a look at the Keptn CLI, we already had this Keptn generate command. If we show the help here, there was already the possibility to generate documentation, generates the markdown documentation for Keptn CLI, blah, blah, blah. Now there's another subcommand which is called cloud event spec. So if we would now call that one, generate cloud event spec, it would give us, I did something wrong.
The S was missing, events.
Events spec. First of all, it will complain that you need to create a folder, which is called CE docs, cloud event docs. Let's make this CE docs. Is it spelled correctly? Okay. And we have that. Issue the command again. It will do a couple of stuff. Let's take a look at this folder, CE docs. Let's open it. It will basically generate a markdown file. If we now take a look at the markdown file, I can quickly go to a markdown editor to show it to you. It will actually show you or generate you a very nice description of our cloud events, specification with a table of contents. If we go to, I don't know, approver, it will generate this structure we already have, where you have the JSON schema for this event and an example for each event. So this is much better than writing this by hand each time. And we can use it for the HTML site, which is describing our Keptn cloud event specification. And on the other hand, it's also good if you're just interested, okay, how does the Keptn event for event blah, blah, blah look like? Then you just issue the command, generate cloud events, take a look at the example, and then there you have it.
Bernd, can you quickly jump to the section in this markdown file for the evaluation, please?
Yes.
Because I'm currently looking at an issue we have in the backlog that says that the invalidated event is missing. Can you scroll down? This is the triggered one.
Mm-hmm.
Example, the starter. The status changed. Evaluation finished. Oh yeah, okay. Then comes the release section.
It could be that something is missing here, that I'm not at the latest version of the code base, but is something missing, or?
Yeah, the invalidated event for evaluation is missing, but we have an issue for that, and let's figure out why it's not in there in course of addressing this issue.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So there were plans actually to take this functionality and call it in our CI pipeline to actually automatically then also update the HTML page of the Keptn specification based on that result we get here. That was not yet done. I don't think it will be possible to do that until the next release, but what you have to do now, or what we have to do now, is this create this specification manually and put it, yeah, also manually to the HTML project, which is responsible for rendering the Keptn spec. But would be nice to have that automatically integrated into the pipeline via a GitHub action or something like that. But it's not currently not done.
But already this automation is really, really great. To be clear here. So this was always a manual task to do this, and yeah, of course, error prone. I would now have a technical question. How is ghost struct included in this generation here? Do we have here some? So
don't expect that there's any magic ongoing here. It is absolutely not. We are just, for example, having code in our CLI, which is basically instantiating each ghost struct. Okay. So we are instantiating a deployment finished ghost struct and transforming it into the JSON schema and JSON format output, and that's it. So technically, it's really not that exciting. What you still need to do is, if now some additional field comes up for a cloud event, you need to adapt that code in the CLI. So that's still something we could further automate with reflection or something like that. If we have time, we could automate this aspect too. For now, if for example, the deployment finished event has another field called, I don't know, something, then you need to do that programmatically in the CLI. However, it's not possible to make mistakes or something like that, because then the CLI will not compile. So that's already a plus point, I think. Okay. So what's there is always correct, but there's the possibility there's something missing because we forgot to add this to the code which is generating that stuff. But also this could be made more sophisticated with reflection or something like that. We could take a look at that later issue.
thanks. So now I also understand the technical details. I really like it. So
yeah, it's already a benefit if what's stated here is true. And this is our guarantee that it's true, because otherwise it would not compile.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it from me, I think.
All right, yeah, then when I take a look at the agenda for today, we have no further items on the list. This means that we have some time left to take questions from the community, if there are some. Feel free to stand up and to raise your hand, or to post a question into the chat, and we are happy to take them. Okay, I see no questions coming in. Then maybe a couple of final remarks from my end. Yeah, we are currently working on getting Keptn 0.8 finished. There are still a couple of issues left that need to be implemented, but we are on a good way to get it done and to close or to finish the work around the 0.8 version. It will bring really cool new features. We will definitely promote and explain in a separate meeting, so to say. Okay, when there are no additional questions, then we will end today a little bit earlier as usual, and then have a good day and see you next time next week. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
See you.
Bye. Nice evening.